Hey guys, tonight's show, we have a couple guests with us, and we are going to be talking all about rookies, and then we're going to go into some quarterbacks and things like that. But I'm super excited for our guests tonight. We have Joe and Josh from Club Fantasy. Here we got Josh and Joe. There they are. Welcome back.
How you doing? Thanks for having us, Kristin.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I was looking for people for Thursday night shows. You guys did the little GIF, with the guy waving his hand. So, and Josh is actually close to me. I'm in Sarasota, Florida. You're in Palmetto. And Joe, where are you at?
Dallas, Texas, a little further away.
All right. I've been to Dallas. I had a good time in Dallas. I'm a big Mavs fan too, so I'm a little upset the Mavs had an early exit. But this is a football show, so we're going to talk all fantasy. And again, I want to welcome back. We have Eric from Fantasy Pros with Joe's, our charity fantasy league we're doing this year. And I know Ryan from Club Fantasy is in that with us, but Ryan is not joining us tonight. So Eric, welcome back.
He had an auction draft to do, so sorry. He sends his regards.
Yeah. Thanks for having us again, Kristin.
Yeah, so let's talk about a little bit about the charity event again. So we were on Sports Caffeine Tuesday, so this is my fantasy show. So go ahead, Eric, and give them a quick rundown of what's going on.
Yeah. Real simple breakdown is Pros with Joe's is essentially giving the everyday player a chance to co-manage a fantasy football team in a league full of experts with the fantasy analysts that they trust most. So the real cool thing about it is that all of our 56 pros that are participating are supporting different charities and causes near and dear to their heart. To get involved, all you have to do is go to proswithjoes.rallyup.com. You can see all 56 of our experts, see what causes they're supporting, go in, make a donation, and you're entered into a drawing to co-manage a team with them.
Yeah, and I saw some of the donation numbers today, and getting up there, I was impressed. I had a few donations, so thank you to everyone who's donated to my cause. I'm supporting the Humane Society of Sarasota County. We know, all the pups and kittens and all them need love too. And Eric, you're going to stay on with us tonight, right? And talk a little fantasy, a little rookies and stuff, I hope.
Yeah, we're going to mix it up a little bit.
Awesome. I'm really glad I'm talking to you guys tonight. I actually have not done any of my drafts yet. I have 3 this weekend, one Saturday, I have one Monday, and then I have our Pros at Joe's on Tuesday. So I better do well after doing all these shows and talking to all these experts and everything. But I really want to get into the rookies because it's a really wild year with COVID 2020, no preseason. These guys are really going to have to just jump in there. And we didn't see the first running back off the board till the last pick with Edwards-Helaire with the Chiefs. Normally, these running backs that go second round aren't giving you that production. So my first question is, how are you guys, when you look at your projections and stuff, I'll start with you, Josh. How do you project these rookies when you've never seen them on a field in a preseason game? You've only seen them in college. You don't know what to expect. So what are your projections? Like, how do you do that?
A lot of it boils down to the situation. So for me, the easiest things to project, I think, are the running back positions, mostly because you want to look at draft capital. So typically in the fantasy industry, especially among dynasty players and, people that are more about the numbers and the advanced metrics and things like that, what they're looking for is running backs or really rookies in general that are taken within the first 4 rounds, because that gives the type of draft capital that tells them in their head, okay, the team is going to give them a much longer leash than somebody that was taken in, say, the 5th, 6th, or 7th round. And that's kind of the difference between someone like, say, Keyshawn Vaughn, who was taken in the 4th, I believe, versus Eno Benjamin, who was taken in the 7th with Arizona. So I think situation plays a lot into it. Obviously, someone like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who has that first-round draft capital, it's very easy to sit there and say, look, this guy's going to see more than 200 touches this year. And then, of course, you see that Damian Williams opts out this year. Now he has an even higher probability for a bigger workload. You look at someone like a Zach Moss, who was drafted in the 3rd round, falls right into Buffalo, where they're losing Frank Gore, who had, I believe, 166 rushes. And they've already come out and said Moss is going to he's going to have that Frank Gore role. Now you hear all the stuff out of camp that Devin Singletary is having fumbling issues. There's a real chance that Zach Moss could ultimately end up having more than 200 rushes. And when you look at his college production, he's actually a better and more efficient wide receiver out of the backfield as well as pass protection than Devin Singletary. So that's somebody that you're getting way later in drafts that could be an instant impact. And then, of course, I know Joe's favorite. I don't want to step too much on it, but Jonathan Taylor, who lands in an absolutely perfect situation with a great offensive line in Indianapolis. Marlon Mack did well last year, but he's had injury issues over his career. So it would not shock me if Jonathan Taylor comes in just from a talent perspective where he averaged over 2,000 rushing yards per season at Wisconsin and just absolutely, pun intended, runs away with that job.
All right, Joe. So you're high on Jonathan Taylor there. How many times have you drafted him? Have you got him in your league yet?
So I'm like you. I think we talked before this whole thing, before we hopped on. A lot of my drafts are this weekend. I have 3 this weekend. I like drafting the weekend before because you have situations like Leonard Fournette getting cut, and then it's up in the air. Of course, he got signed by the Bucs, so I'm sure a lot of Leonard Fournette owners had a sigh of relief at that point. But I do have JT in a dynasty league. And
you're welcome for that, by the way.
Yeah, very welcome. Josh traded away the first pick, the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Some guy took CEH, and then I got Jonathan Taylor, and I knew Josh was going to take JT if he kept that first.
I couldn't pass up Joe Mixon for the 101. I'm sorry. I'll take that all day.
Yeah, Joe Mixon, I'm not hating that pick at all. Now, Joe, how many rookies are too many? Because this year, I mean, there was a plethora. We had 19 between wide receivers and running backs drafted in the first 2 rounds. I mean, it was a very big, lineman draft this year. So a lot of these guys went later than expected. But how many rookies is too many rookies? Let's say we were going to go with your regular standard league team, with your 2 running backs flex position.
Sure. And I think when it comes to quarterbacks, you're really like the only guy that you may be drafting is Joe Burrow if you're in a very deep league, like 14, 16 teams, maybe as a backup, or in a super flex if we're going non-standard. Tight ends, there isn't really anybody this year. Cole Kmet was the highest drafted guy, and he landed in Chicago. That's not going to happen. Running backs and receivers, this year and next year are loaded classes. Like next year, you got Travis Etienne, Najee Harris. Like they're going to be absolutely stacked. So this year with running backs, love Jonathan Taylor. Not as high on Clyde Edwards-Helaire just because of where he's being drafted at the moment. But obviously, we know, like Josh said, he's going to get the touches. Those are my top 2 guys. Receivers, Judy, Mims, Ruggs. I mean, you could list a bunch of them off for the amount of skill that they have. Receivers, I'm a little more flexible with okay, if they were taken in the 3rd round, but they're in a really good situation, and say, for example, like a Bryan Edwards, Tyrell Williams just got hurt, so that kind of allows him to slide into the offense a little better. I don't normally draft rookies at the quarterback or tight end position, but running backs and receivers are guys that I tend to target if I believe in their talent and what I've seen at the college level.
All right, I like that. So, Eric, I wanted to ask you. So he was talking about the rookie running backs and tight ends there. How many rookies have you drafted so far? Any?
Yeah, so I usually go pretty light on rookies, right? At least as a kind of broader draft strategy. Ultimately, I'm trying to exclude variables, and not seeing these guys play at the highest level is a variable. So I'll have 2 or 3 on a given team. Usually I'll end up with more wide receivers than running backs, just given the sort of draft capital I have to invest to get a CEH or a Taylor. Those rookie wide receivers that are coming in that have the talent, that are, slotted into a good opportunity like the pair in Las Vegas. Those are the guys that I typically have on the back of my bench as kind of stretch run lottery tickets.
So it's interesting. So I was kind of doing my research on this show about rookies, and I found a really good article. Matt Flowers wrote it on yardsperfantasy.com, and he did this study of running backs in the last 10 years drafted, and he did it, first 16 picks, next 16, he divided them up into 4 categories, and he did it with the receivers as well. And what you really see is the running backs will give you a lot of production, an RB1 production, these guys, the Edwards-Helaire's, the DeAndre Swifts, beginning of the season. And then in the end, when you're making your playoff run, they kind of drop off. Their numbers are more RB2, RB3 numbers, whereas the wide receivers don't get as much, they kind of part-time find their way in that offense towards the back end of the season. They're getting that full time if they can prove to make those catches. So in this study, the receivers were actually more valuable in the second half of the season than some of these running backs there. So going with these receivers, I mean, you named a lot of them there. We have the CeeDee Lambs, T. Higgins, the Henry Ruggs. There's a lot of talk about all these guys, and I'm seeing a lot of big things from them. So I want to know, who is your wide receiver bust, the guy you're not high on that everyone's talking about? So I'll start with you, Josh.
I mean, I've got a couple, honestly. The biggest one for me, I think, is going to be Denzel Mims, just because Adam Gase is the worst person ever. I want nothing to do with anyone in within the Jets organization. I have no issue taking a flyer on Jamison Crowder. Adam Gase throughout the years, he's always had productive slot wide receivers, and Crowder was very productive last year. And his draft price is it's in that wide receiver 40 range. So, I'll take a flyer there. But I think the biggest one with the highest draft capital to me that I'm absolutely staying away from is Justin Jefferson. As a Philadelphia Eagles fan, everybody in Philly was like, how did you take Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson? He's so much better. All that college production, blah, blah, blah. He is a slot receiver, hands down. He sucks running routes on the outside. Absolutely terrible. He lands in one of the most perfect offenses in college football that we've probably ever seen. So, sure, the numbers, they're what they are. CEH was nothing before last year as well. A lot of people don't want to realize that. But for me, with Jefferson, Adam Thielen is best out of the slot there. They're in an offense that, as we saw last year, yes, I understand that Stefanski was the play caller, but that was modeled after Gary Kubiak's system. Kubiak is now running the show there. And by all accounts in camp, Olabisi Johnson is the one that's going to run on the outside opposite Adam Thielen there.
Josh, I was about to say there was a report saying that Jefferson's going to be the third receiver on the depth chart, and that's going to leave BC Johnson outside. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just but again, if Thielen stays in the slot, Johnson on one side, Jefferson on the other. Jefferson's going to be a forgotten man.
Yeah.
And I think with where he's going in drafts, and you see this a lot with some of the higher rookie picks, like they're all kind of bunched together because it's like, oh, they're the hot commodity. But you really do have to pay attention to those situations. And I would much rather bank on someone like CeeDee Lamb, even Jalen Reagor. Yes, I understand he's probably going to miss the first 4 games with a shoulder injury. But I wouldn't be shocked, too, if we saw something like what OBJ did his rookie year, where he missed the first 4 games and then absolutely exploded over the next 12. Because who do they have to throw to in Philly? We know Deshaun Jackson's only going to play 3 games, right? He's going to get hurt at some point, and nobody else can stay healthy there. And then Scott. You look at, shut up. Don't talk to me about Boston
I
Scott.
love Boston Scott.
But then you also look at the Raiders kids with Tyrell Williams going on IR. You've got Henry Ruggs coming in, who, again, 12th overall pick, has that draft capital. Bryan Edwards, and Joe, I'm going to bring up your favorite stat, his 100th percentile rating in breakout age. That's a premium rookie pick in the 3rd round, who is a productive college player who has success in that Gamecocks offense where they run a lot of bubble screens, which is really what helped propel Deebo Samuel. John Gruden loves to run those types of screens. He's going to do it with Henry Ruggs that utilized that. I believe it was a 4.27 40 that he ran. They're going to do the same thing with Edwards. And then you've got, Renfro and Waller running in the middle. There's a lot of opportunity for guys like that. The rookies anyway, coming into the league.
All right, Joe. So who's your, I know you wanted to chime in there a couple times and shut that up. So let's see what you have to say about that. Who's your guy? Everyone's high end that you just don't see doing it this year.
I'm going to echo Josh on the Mims thing. We both hate Adam Gase. We think he's a terrible head coach, but there's 2 things working against Mims. It's Gase and the fact that Baylor's never had a productive NFL receiver, especially in fantasy football. Top 3 guys to come out of Baylor are Terrence Williams, Corey Coleman, Kendall Wright. Wright had a couple good years. Terrence Williams was on and off. Corey Coleman's terrible. So that's working. And I hate putting that into perspective, but when you look at it, guys that come out of SMU, Cortland Sutton, Emmanuel Sanders, James Prochet, that's why I'm high on guys like James Prochet and Trent Taylor to come out of the slot and actually make something out of themselves. I think Mims has incredible talent, but he landed in a crap area with the New York Jets with Adam Gase. And just looking at his school's history, they've never attracted NFL talent at that position. So that's wary with Mims. Jerry Jeudy, I think, has more value in standard scoring. I just think Sutton's going to take up so many targets. And remember, they still have Noah Fant, who's going to get a lot of red zone targets. And they're loaded in the backfield with Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon. And they still have Royce Freeman if they ever wanted to mix him in. Brandon Ayuk, let's chill with this guy at Arizona State. He's not even a top 5 option in his offense. Kittle, Mostert, Coleman, Debo, and Jerick McKinnon. Remember, Jerick McKinnon is still there. Kyle Shanahan's first option that he wanted as a running back. So Ayuk is probably going to see, 15 snaps a game at this point. So it's really going to limit his production. Henry Ruggs, terrible fantasy receiver, really good NFL receiver. He's not going to blow you away in fantasy football, but I love his upside as an actual NFL player. And the one guy that I think is interesting, and Kristin, you brought up his name, T. Higgins. If A.J. Green and John Ross get hurt, T. Higgins all day. Pick him up if he's in your league. Him and Auden Tate are going to be the only guys in that offense to throw to, not out of the backfield, not including Gio Bernard or Joe Mixon. So I think T. Higgins' potential relies on if A.J. Green and John Ross get injured, which is pretty likely. So,
yeah. And T. Higgins has kind of been, his name's been a little quieter, but CeeDee Lamb is getting all the praise right now. He's like the guy I want to talk about. But yeah, T. Higgins has kind of been left by the wayside, and he was such a talent at Clemson. So I'm intrigued to see what he says, and we'll talk about Burrow in a minute. But Eric, I want to see who your fantasy rookie receiver bust is.
Yeah, so to kind of spin off of Joe's point, it's more like when Green and Ross get hurt, right?
Yeah.
So T. Higgins is certainly the rookie that I have the most exposure to. To your point about where he's going in drafts, right? I can just scoop him up as we're finishing things up and have him there ready to go off down the stretch run. I hate that Mims fell to the Jets, right? I mean, they're just going to screw that up. The only thing I would really add is looking at CeeDee Lamb. I think over the course of his career, he can maybe be one of the more impactful rookies from this class. But right now, there are just so many mouths to feed in that offense, right? And relative to where I have to draft him, I don't want a guy that I'm not sure if he's the second option or the fifth option. So that he's certainly the rookie that I have the least exposure to currently.
Yeah, and we're all experts here, and everyone else we play with is probably amateurs, so they're reaching for all these rookies and everything. And I'd rather go with a guy that I know and I've seen on the field. Henry Ruggs is kind of there, even with Tyrell Williams going down. As soon as Tyrell Williams down, all you're hearing about is Edwards. You're not even hearing his name, and I just don't think that Derek Carr is going to be the guy to make somebody a really great fantasy wide receiver this year. So I am definitely going to go with him. So going on with rookies, you brought up Joe Burrow there. I'm looking at rookie quarterbacks, and the only top 10 finishes of rookie quarterbacks in the last few years, you had Dak as a rookie finish QB6 and Kyler finished QB7. The next highest rookie quarterback finish was Baker with 16. Wentz finished at 24. But Burrow's kind of in a special situation. He had an amazing career at LSU, amazing senior year. He, was at Ohio State for a little while. But do you see him finishing that top 10 quarterback? You said draft him later, but I see a lot of potential upside to Joe Burrow in this, all the receivers you just named. Where do you see him finishing the year? Is he going to be a top 10 QB? Let's go top 12. Let's give him that 12 spot. I'll start with you, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely not. So sorry to rain on your Buckeyes parade. But I mean, just looking at the Bengals as a whole, right? They had the first draft pick overall for a reason, right? There are a lot of holes on that roster, and there are a lot of things that have to come together in order for an offense to really start clicking. So I'm personally not sold on Zach Taylor as a head coach quite yet. Their offensive line, granted, got a bit better because they were arguably the worst in the league last year, but he's going to have protection issues this year. And as we touched on when we were talking about rookie receivers, yes, we're anticipating guys like Green and Ross to go down, so that then leaves him dependent on people that are brand new into the league. And I don't see a situation where all of these things that are working against him are things that he can overcome in his first season. So I've got him landing somewhere in the 25 to 30 range personally.
Oh, wow. You got him pretty low. All right. Josh, where do you have Burrow finishing?
When I did my projections, I have him at QB 26. So I'm right there with you. It's just when you look at the rookie quarterbacks that are coming in that are finishing high, it's typically because of their rushing statistics.
Yeah.
It's not because they're coming in and they're throwing for 4,300 yards and 30 touchdowns. A lot of rookies aren't going to do that. But we know that quarterbacks that run the football are fantasy cheat codes. We saw it last year with Lamar Jackson. He also had the benefit of leading the league in touchdown passes, which I feel like was kind of an anomaly, but I digress. Burrow is athletic enough that I think that, he could push for, 350, maybe even 400 yards. But unless he's putting up 500 plus rushing yards, 5-6 touchdowns, which I do have him at 5 rushing touchdowns. A lot of people don't realize this, but Andy Dalton actually had 4 rushing touchdowns in that same offense last year. And Joe Burrow is a more athletic quarterback. So I don't think 5 is out of the question for him to be able to do that. But again, it's a rookie, no offseason, no preseason to work and develop chemistry with these guys in real life game situations. As much as I love me some Tyler Boyd this year, I'm not overly ecstatic about what I think that Joe Burrow could be in year 1, but I'm absolutely excited about what he can bring to the table in year 2 and beyond.
All right, Joe, tell me that I don't look like an idiot right here thinking that Burrow can crack the top 12. Where's your projected Burrow landing?
I don't think he cracks the top 12. I think there's so much talent at the quarterback position in fantasy football.
It's a very deep position.
Yeah, it's an even year, so Matt Ryan's top 5, so we can count him in there. But no, so like a lot of what I do, especially with rookie QBs, is I like to go through their schedule. That's what I love to do looking at rookies. Should I draft them, should you not? Cincinnati, their division has some of the best defenses in the NFL. Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and I know no one wants to admit it, but Cleveland's defense, when healthy, is very scary.
And they just added Ronnie Harrison at safety as well. So
Cleveland here, guys. Don't sleep on Cleveland. But
yeah, I mean, they're a very scary defense. So they play 5 of their 6 division games throughout the fantasy season. Week 17 is home against Baltimore, so you won't see them during the fantasy football season unless you extend that far. So they're playing in Baltimore. So no way. So there's 5 games right there that I count out saying, okay, he's going to do average to below average in those games. They play the AFC South, where outside of Indianapolis, every defense is garbage. You can't convince me otherwise. Jacksonville's terrible. Tennessee's hot and cold. The Texans have J.J. Watt. That's it. And the Bengals play the NFC East, who also have no resemblance of a defense on any 4 of those teams. Josh can attest, being an Eagles fan. So when you look at it, his schedule kind of lines up to half of his games play bad defenses, half of his games play good defenses. I don't like that, because the variable with the rookie is if you have a good front 7 or just a good pass rush, that gets to a rookie. We all know a rookie can pick up. A rookie could pick apart a secondary if you give him time. Any quarterback can pick apart a secondary. When you have Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram raining on you from the Los Angeles Chargers in Week 1, sorry, you're going to have no time to get rid of the football. Even with Jonah Williams coming back, the rookie who was supposed to play last year, he has an improved offensive line. If you look at his targets, like we already talked about, when healthy, AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, John Ross, Auden Tate, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, Gio Bernard. You could argue that is a top 10 at skill position players when they're all healthy. Eric touched on it. John Ross and AJ Green aren't going to be healthy. So you're looking at Auden Tate, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. Again, not bad. Tate and Higgins are unproven. We know what Boyd is. So I don't see it. I see him more as low teens, high 20s, or low 20s, excuse me. But top 12 is tough for me to commit to. Like I said, I don't mind him in late 14, 16 team drafts, because at that point you're throwing crapshoots because you're going to need a backup. And I think Burrow's a good crapshoot as a backup because Cincinnati's going to have to throw the football.
And my projections had him at just south of 3,900 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, and 18 interceptions.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I'm hoping that I'm wrong. I mean, I may get him later in the rounds. I have 1 14-team league, so maybe try to get him later there. But I'm hoping that I'm right, and then I can replay this at the end of the season and be like, you guys are all wrong. I was right. Hey.
Look, I will gladly be wrong. I like Joe Burrow. I'm rooting for him. I really am. I hope he does well, and I especially want T. Higgins to do well because I am a huge fan of his. Yeah. So I will gladly eat that crow. Glad.
Yeah, he's got a big chip on his shoulder, and we've seen it with this guy every time. And I really do think it's a different situation than when we've seen, the 4 guys coming in and the Darnold year and things like that. But I want to stick with quarterbacks right now. But what I saw when I was researching today, I see Mahomes going 10th in the first round usually, and I see Jackson's going about 6th in the second. Are they going too high? Are you drafting Mahomes or Jackson round 1 or 2? Eric?
No, never.
All right.
I mean, it's. I think it's a Chris Rock quote, right? A man is only as loyal as his options. And when I think about the type of talent that I have to pass up to snag, who can arguably be, the top 2 quarterbacks in fantasy this year, it's still not a trade off that I'm willing to make. You get so thin at your first running back and your first wide receiver spot when you invest that sort of draft capital in the QB.
So, Josh, should I be making fun of these guys in my drafts this weekend when they all are taking Mahomes with their first pick?
Absolutely, you should be.
Yes.
Okay. I'm very much on the JJ Zacharias and train late round QB. I do not subscribe to the early round QB methodology. I think it's dumb. Sure, you know, there's always going to be outliers. I mean, Michael Vick, his first year starting in Philly was an absolute cheat code. Lamar Jackson last year, absolute cheat code. You know, a couple years ago, Mahomes 50 touchdown passes, absolute cheat code. Those are all anomalies, right? And you never know when those types of seasons are going to happen. You know, if you pull, and even just looking at Jackson, like in all the leagues that Joe and I play in, it's all 6 points per touchdown pass. So the rushing isn't as much of an advantage when you look at it in terms of that. But just looking at the raw stats, like Jackson was one of 4 quarterbacks in NFL history to have a 9% touchdown rate. The other 3, the next year, they all regressed. Manning fell to a 6.2%, Stabler 6.8, Rodgers 7.1, which is still fairly high. I mean, your average quarterback, you want him at 5.5%. And Lamar Jackson's not going to throw the football 500-600 times because of his rushing ability. He's going to run the ball probably another 140 times, which is going to keep his passing attempts within that 450 range, because I believe he was only at 404 last year. So if you're looking at a 6% touchdown rate at 450 pass attempts, that's still only going to be about 28 touchdowns, which is good, sure. But the yardage is only going to be maybe 3,100, give or take, 3,300 on a good week or a good season, excuse me. But then you look at the rushing statistics. Every quarterback that has ever rushed for over 800 yards in a season has never topped 600 the next. So now you're losing 70 fantasy points just off of his rushing ability because he topped 1,200 rushing yards last year. So there's a lot of variables that go into taking Jackson. It's the methodology of paying a guy after he had a career season, a la Chris Davis and Baltimore Orioles, and then just watching him shit the bed for the next 3 years.
Absolutely. Joe Flacco, great example.
Another example. There you go.
Joe Flacco, and I don't even know where that guy is now. So
backup quarterback, New York Jets.
Oh, even better, Adam Gase. Let's bring up more Adam Gase.
Yes.
Today about something. Le'Veon Bell was like, me and Adam Gase don't hate each other, and I'm like,
they do.
Let's start quarterback games since we're talking about how many touchdowns. So Lamar Jackson had 36 touchdowns last year. I'm guessing we're all going to go on the under on that one. Anyone think he's having that again?
Yes. No, he's going under.
Under. All right.
I have him at 26.
26. All right. Russell Wilson, 31. Over or under? Eric.
I'll go under. From what we've seen with this Seattle offense, they really love that more ball control style of game, and a lot of those touchdowns that Russell was racking up were in those fourth quarter heroics that we've come to know him for, and those things are hard to repeat, right? So I think if Pete Carroll really has his way, he's going to see a much heavier balance with contribution from the running side of the ball this year.
I mean, don't forget they just re-signed Josh Gordon, so we are going on over under how many before he gets the games where he gets suspended. All right, Joe, how about Dak? Dak had 30 last year. Over under.
Way over. Have you seen the weapons he's throwing to? He's throwing to the only guy Player Profiler has named a rookie comparison to Jerry Rice. CeeDee Lamb, the current Dallas Cowboys wide receiver 1. You can't change my mind on that. Amari Cooper, when he decides to play at home, he'll catch like 12 touchdowns. Michael Gallup, who everyone seems to just still, it goes over his head. Michael Gallup is a great receiver, especially in fantasy. Blake Jarwin, Zeke out of the backfield. Oh, he also has Tony Pollard. Guy's going to throw 650 times. He'll have 40-plus touchdowns. No doubt in my mind he goes over.
Oh, yeah, I was looking at the numbers. I never realized Dak has never finished outside the top 12. And guess what? Remember when we were drafting Aaron Rodgers all the time in the first round a few years ago? Oh, Mike McCarthy was his head coach back then, who's now coaching Dak. So
great point.
Yeah, I mean, since Amari Cooper came there, he's got 67% completion rate, 8.4 yards per attempt. I mean, I don't like the Cowboys. Dak's a good guy. I can't say anything bad about him. I just can't stand the Cowboys. But it's really going to be hard to vote against Dak this year. All right, now these guys all had 27. So I'll ask each one of you. Josh, Drew Brees, over under 27 touchdowns.
I think he goes over. I have him projected at 31. And again, keep in mind, too, he did that in only 11 games last year.
That's true. Oh, I forgot he missed all those games. Teddy was throwing all those touchdowns then. All right. Jimmy G, over under 27, Eric.
I'll go under. I mean, that wide receiver core is banged up already. So it's hard to see a world where he's going to continue to rely so heavily on Kittle and not have a significant defensive adjustment to that lineup, right? So I'll take the under with Jimmy.
Yeah, and Kittle's never had more than 5 touchdowns in a season.
Really? Wow.
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to say it was a fluke year last year, but it was really hard for me to get on that 49ers bandwagon. I mean,
Jimmy G is the most overrated quarterback in the NFL.
All right, I like that. I can get along with that. And then Carson Wentz, Joe, over under 27.
Under. He's going to get hurt.
Shut up. Don't put that juju on my team, you asshole.
Under. I'm at 15 because he's going to get hurt. It's Boomer Sooner, Jalen Hurts time, baby. Let's go.
Wow, Jalen Hurts is awesome. Actually, when we were at the Combine, we were staying in the same Airbnb as Jalen Hurts, and we were locked out when we first got there. And I had no idea who he was when you just see him on the street. Really, really nice guy. And he left, and I look up, I'm like, that's freaking Jalen Hurts. So we were just standing here.
I have very mixed feelings about that pick. I have very mixed feelings. I understood it when I really stopped and looked at it. When you look at the Philly cap situation over the next couple of years, they can't afford to really pay a backup. But if you draft somebody, you're getting them at a rookie scale for the next 4 years. So it makes sense in terms of that. But just stop with the Carson Wentz being injury prone crap.
No.
Somebody falls on your head while you're on the ground. Most people are not going to walk away from that. Okay. He played all 16 games last year. He's played in 16 games 2 seasons out of 4. Sure, it's not a great percentage. I get that, but it's not like he's hurting the same body part. They're fluke injuries on each side of the coin. So stop.
So all I'm hearing is he's getting injured and he's going to pull an Andrew Luck and retire at 29. That's
tell me how it works out with Cam Newton and his injuries this season in New England, Joe.
Josh, the Patriots have 6 rings. You think you can hurt me? You can't hurt me.
I love this. Speaking of New England, let's go to our old guy in New England, which I think we're all going to agree on this. Tom Brady, over 24 touchdowns this year.
Way over.
By a mile.
All right, what's everyone's projecting him at? Joe, what do you have him projected for?
So I put in my notes 31 because he doesn't have a running back. I'll drop that to 29 because Leonard Fournette signed there. So, yeah, he's going to smash that out of the park.
Josh, what's your prediction for Brady?
I have him at 28.
28. Eric, what do you think?
I'm splitting the difference. I've got him at 30. Right, he's one of the best to ever do it in terms of manipulating the offense at the line. Right, so with so many tools to pick from, he's going to find and make that matchup. He's going to have a lot of jump ball TDs this year.
Hell yeah.
I was talking to someone today. They were listening to a podcast last night, and I didn't even think about this when Carson Palmer was, aged and sucked and went to Arizona with Bruce Arians. Look at the great couple of seasons Carson Palmer had in his later years under the quarterback whisperer Bruce Arians. So I'm a Browns fan, but I do live in the Tampa area. Go ahead.
Think back though to all of the quarterbacks in their first year with Bruce Arians. Every single one had over 20 turnovers.
Really? I did not know that. Interesting.
Yeah.
I
think with Brady's going to be different, though. He's the GOAT. He's the, it'll be interesting to see.
To me, what's going to be interesting is how much of the Brady and, McDaniels offense that Arians actually incorporates in to keep Brady happy versus how much he's going to force on Brady with his system.
It's 2 different worlds colliding in terms of the offense, right? So
yeah.
A lot of those spikes in turnovers year one with Arians is him forcing the ball downfield. And I think they'll pretty quickly see that Brady's not as capable as some other quarterbacks to do that.
Yeah,
so
his
it'll
arm
be a bit more mid-range.
Dead last year, absolutely dead.
Okay. No, it didn't. He still had zip on it. He's never been able to throw the football deep. He had Randy Moss for 1 year who you could throw the ball on the same continent and Randy Moss was going to catch the football. He's never had a deep threat on his team outside of Moss. So he's never thrown the football deep. Mike Evans is still going to get his, but if Arians forces Tom's noodle arm to throw the football deep, that's where the 20-plus turnovers are going to come from. He's going to have 10 He's going to have 10 interceptions trying to force the ball to Mike Evans 40 yards down the field because the ball's going to float up there. He's never been able to throw the football deep accurately.
Which makes you wonder why people think this is such a good fit. because schematically speaking, with what Brady has historically done versus what Arians has historically done, they're about as opposite as you can get.
Yeah.
Well, because Carson Palmer was a gunslinger. That was when Fitz was still back, somewhat in his prime. Was Anquan Bolden still there, or was that past Anquan Bolden time? Was he gone?
I think that was past Bolden.
Okay.
Bolden was in
He
Baltimore.
wasn't Baltimore either by that time.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I figured. But I mean, even though, he still had, there were deep threats on that team. Fitz is one of the best of all time, but Palmer could sling it. Brady can't. It's very simple. Brady can't throw the ball deep. He's never been able to.
Hey, but you got 3 big old tight ends there. You might not have to throw it deep. You can do some little dunk and dinks to his tight ends, give it to Fournette. Maybe his touchdown numbers go down, but that was going to be my next question here. So Saturday is my big draft. It's my league I've been in for 10 years, $200. I've been the only girl in this league for 10 years.
Go kick some ass, Kristin.
And I hope it worked, though. So my brother is going to do the draft for me, my very capable little brother, Scott. Shout out to Scott for doing that for me. But he wants my list. And so of guys, and my must-have quarterback, I was going to say I want Tom Brady as my must-have quarterback because I think he's going low, but now you guys have almost convinced me otherwise. Just this short conversation.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I'm an ageist when it comes to quarterbacks. I tend to stay away from guys that are 38 and older. I won't draft them. I will pick them up on waivers if I see them doing well, but I'm not going to draft them. But one thing I will say about Brady, even last year at age 42, and our co-host Ryan dropped this on our show last night, at 42 years old, he led all quarterbacks in red zone carries.
Wow.
So stop and think about that for a second. So
over Josh Allen with all those rushing touchdowns, which he's the one. But everywhere I've said, Josh, I don't think Josh Allen's gonna be a bust. I think he's just not gonna have those red zone carries. He's got so much more around him. He's not gonna have to do so much. I don't think he'll have as many touchdowns. I think he'll still have a decent year.
He had the lowest check down percentage of all quarterbacks last year. So if you were getting hyped about the potential of like Zach Moss or Devin Singletary as a receiving back, throw it out the window right now.
So Krista, you said you want, you're thinking about Tom Brady on your list. Would you rather Tom Brady or Matt Ryan right now?
Well, you said even years, so Matt Ryan, but
they're being taken 3 spots apart.
Yeah,
I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all.
You know what, guys? I think I'm going to take him, and I think I'm going to be able to get him at a very good value. I think you make fun of me of Mahomes, Baker Mayfield. I think he has gotten into shape. I think that Stefanski with our new offensive coordinator as well. I think everyone jumped on that Browns bandwagon last year, and now they're like, "Oh, Browns still suck," and we have a better defense now. I think Baker's really going to pull it together. I think he was embarrassed last year. I will never draft Odell. Burned me way too many times. But I think that even as my QB2 to get him late, I think that Baker. But I think Dak is the guy I really, really want to try to aim for. I think Dak is.
You just have to pay up for him. That's the issue. Is any of those top 6 guys? Lamar, Mahomes, Dak, Watson, Kyler, Russell. You're ultimately going to spend a top 6 round draft pick on them. So then it becomes. Is this your 14 team league that you were talking about?
Yeah.
If that's the case, I don't know that I would do that. I would much rather sit back and wait because then I could get somebody like a lottery ticket, like a Gardner Minshew,
Daniel
Jones. If you can get past that first 4-game stretch where he's got a lot of tough defenses, he could have a top 15, top 12 season, even just in those 12 games. We saw what he was able to do in stretches last year, but also keep in mind too, 75% of his games, he had 1 or 0 touchdown passes. And a lot of people don't want to realize that. So there's some variables there with Daniel Jones.
If you want to go,
this is great. It's like picking lottery numbers, and it's like, let's see how we do here. Well, you brought up Watson in those top tier quarterbacks. So Eric, I'll start with you here. I want to talk about Watson now with Hopkins being gone, and we know a lot of his yards and passes were to Hopkins. What do we see out of Deshaun Watson? They have obviously a porous defense, so they're probably going to be playing from behind. He's probably going to have to air it out. But do you see him doing just as good, maybe better, worse? Where do you put Watson compared, as his baseline with the last few years with Hopkins?
Yeah, I think he has a pretty comparable season to what we've seen out of him so far, right? He's losing arguably, one of the best ball skill wide receivers in the league. So I think that's going to hurt him on some of these kind of chunk plays and jump plays in the end zone, right? So at least in terms of my projection, I've got his touchdowns coming down a bit. But I think with some of the weapons and the pieces that they've brought in, for however much we want to make fun of Bill O'Brien, he's got a lot of guys around him that can catch the ball, right? So I see a lot of catches going into David Johnson out of the backfield. I see a lot of motion and a lot of movement with their small and speedy wide receiver core. So yards up, touchdowns down, about the same we've seen out of Watson from a total fantasy point standpoint.
I actually see him with a little bit more rushing yards than he had in the past few years. He's probably going to have to dance around back there and make something happen, like we've Russell Wilson-esque we've seen the last few years. So, Joe, with Watson going and Hopkins gone, can Fuller step up and be that guy, or whoever who can be that guy? What do you see out of Watson this year? Is he worth the value that high?
Fuller won't be on the field for more than 2 plays. That's
Okay.
the issue with him. We talked about AJ Green and John Ross being injury prone. Will Fuller is a walking wine glass if there is one. Just for Watson, I have no concern drafting him. He's still a baller. He may have to run the football a little more, but yes, he loses DeAndre, but he still has good weapons. Like Randall Cobb still has some juice left in him. Kenny Stills is still pretty good. No one really talks about him, but Kenny Stills is good. If Kiki Cutie can stay healthy, he's pretty good as well. And then their tight ends, we have a Jordan Akins and
Jordan Thomas.
Yeah, Jordan
Haley
Thomas.
Waring.
Yeah, like they have some decent tight ends on their like big-bodied tight ends on their roster that can catch the football. So
And the true RB1, Duke Johnson.
Yeah, except we all know that he's not going to get his. I love Duke Johnson. We all love Duke Johnson. He's just not going to get his time in the sunshine, sadly. But I have no issue. I'm not one to draft a quarterback high, but if you want Deshaun Watson on your team, again, I'm not going to say, oh, he's bad. Like Deshaun Watson's still going to have a top 5, top 6 season.
I think that's one of those top 6 quarterbacks that has the chance to fall. And it's
easily.
People think that, oh, he's not going to be the same quarterback because he lost DeAndre Hopkins. Like Brandon Cooks is a legit wide receiver 1. We've seen it.
Oh, and him.
4,000 yard seasons. He's been a wide receiver, top 15 wide receiver all those years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I understand the concussion concerns, but if you're going to sit there and try to tell me that you're going to hype up Will Fuller and his injury history and not hype up Brandon Cooks, you're an idiot. I'm sorry. That's just dumb logic. So
I just to refute that, right? Just to refute that, play devil's advocate for a second. You can't really prevent a concussion. Like it's your brain. Will Fuller, if he steps on a banana peel, is going to tear his ACL. That's the difference, right? Will Fuller, if the wind gust hits him in the wrong direction, he breaks a shoulder. Like that's the issue with Fuller. Whereas Cooks is more. He's had some really bad concussions. Like we've seen him get his bell rung hard. I think twice or 3 times. Yeah, in the Super Bowl.
He's had, I believe, 4 concussions in the last 2 years. Yeah, it's definitely not great by any means.
He's gotten rocked. He's 100% gotten rocked. But I'm not coming to Brandon Cook's defense by any means right now. But I think that's
their
where
ADPs literally back to back.
They are, and I mean, if you're flipping a coin saying who would you rather want, it's Brandon Cooks 1,000 times over 1,000. That's not even close.
Well, I want to stay in this division then. Another guy that I'm kind of iffy on. I think he can have a really good year playing in that dome. Another older guy, Phillip Rivers. He's got a lot of weapons now too, and I think you can get him pretty low. What's your thoughts on Rivers? Joe Pett.
Okay, I have drafted Phillip Rivers the last 3 years, so I am a big Phillip Rivers proponent. Last year, his age showed. He had 2 of the best receivers, in my opinion, in the league. Keenan Allen, who's a top-tier route runner. Mike Williams, who, again, you just throw it in the vicinity, he's going to catch it. He had 1,000 yards on 50 catches. The guy's insane. 48 catches. And then he had Hunter Henry, Eck out of the backfield, and he didn't look like himself. And it wasn't like he was playing in bad weather. He's playing in sunny Los Angeles half the year.
It was 107 there earlier this week.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there. So.
I'm hoping he has a bounce back season because I love Phillip Rivers. I love the competitor that he is. I love his unorthodox throwing motion. I've always loved Phillip Rivers. And my biggest thing is you look at, like you said, he's going QB 25 right now. The guy's free. I mean, you Kristin, in that 14-team league, you want him as your backup? Go for it. He's going to outplay his ADP right now. You know that for a fact.
Yeah, Pittman is one of my receivers I'm high on. So now we have a question here from Andrea Buffalo. Can I drop Mike Williams for Jay Kelly half PPR?
I would.
Oh.
I would.
I wouldn't.
Williams is already dealing with an injury Tyrod Taylor, I'm not buying his ability to throw the deep ball. I mean, obviously, we don't know when or if Justin Herbert will take over. I think he will. But I'm heavily fading Mike Williams this year. And again, it's not because I don't love the talent of the player, because I'm enamored with Mike Williams. But Josh Kelly, again, when you look at draft capital, Justin Jackson was a 7th-round pick. Joshua Kelly, 4th-round pick. They're in the same backfield. Somebody has to take up that Melvin Gordon role in front of or next to Austin Eckler. I'm a huge Eckler believer. I think he finishes top 5. But that secondary running back is going to have some value. And I would much rather have that on my roster, especially in half PPR, where I'm not as concerned about running back receptions than I would about Mike Williams, who, again, is already hurt.
Interesting. Well, speaking about these running backs that can catch balls, Alvin Kamara. Now, we know there's these contract talks, and I hate contract talks because I drafted Le'Veon Bell first a few years ago and didn't even set foot on the freaking field. So I stay away from contract talk, guys. But now all of a sudden he had an epidural and he was back at practice yesterday. Have you or will you draft Alvin Kamara, or would you just rather stay away and get somebody else, a Derrick Henry or something? Eric, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I've got tons of Alvin Kamara, both pre the trade drama and Twitter blitz, and even since, right? I've had a couple of drafts since where he's slipped to 8th or 9th or 10th even, right? And so when I'm sitting there, I'll jump on him all day long, right? You mentioned Le'Veon Bell, right? Like there's this sentiment around the running back that's heading into a contract dispute. But in reality, Le'Veon Bell, Flash Gordon, I mean, who else has really had a significant impact to their season due to a holdout, right? So I actually tend to target those guys because they typically slip, right? I can get them way later than I usually would. So I've got plenty of Kamara. I don't like the epidural thing, but he's back at practice. All signs are that he'll be fired up and ready to go for week 1. So I've got him in a lot of spots.
According to Matthew Betts from the Fantasy Footballers, their injury expert, the epidural was actually overblown. It was actually an SI joint. So it wasn't a true epidural where it was injected straight into the spine. So it was designed more so for inflammation than an actual spinal issue. So take that for what you will. But according to him, there's a lot less risk involved with that sort of procedure versus getting an actual epidural.
Now, has anyone seen Murray's ADP going up at all during this? Because I was really high on Murray last year, and I was like, oh, he's going to be the new Mark Ingram, and he really didn't do what Mark Ingram did for the Saints there. So has anyone seen, what's your thoughts on Murray with this whole contract and everything going on with Kamara?
So Latavius Murray's going RB 42 right now, according to Fantasy Pros.
Too low.
But yeah, I mean, it is super low. But you want to talk about another guy who we've been talking about for contract problems. Alexander Mattison, Dalvin Cook's backup, is going right after him, RB 43. The difference is when you look at their overalls, Madison is being taken 2 rounds later. So that's something to also like. Madison's being taken on average in the 14th, whereas Latavius Murray's going mid-12th. And I think the bigger thing is Latavius Murray is really good. Sean Payton will not use him in a Mark Ingram role because he's infatuated with Taysom Hill and has to use him in the offense for some godforsaken reason. God,
you're not a Taysom Hill fan, I take it.
Saints fans wonder why they haven't won a playoff game in the last 2 years. It's not the refs; it's your coach. Refs did have.
Well, that and you're paying Taysom Hill,
yes,
QB1 low end QB1 money, and that money could be put somewhere else to better your team.
It's just so stupid. But the reason Kamara was so good his rookie year, he was playing 1A 1B with Mark Ingram. If they use Latavius Murray as the 1B in a Mark Ingram role, Alvin Kamara plays better. But they're not going to do that. Kamara is going to take more of a beating, which is going to hurt him in the long run in your fantasy season. That's why I like Dalvin Cook, because you can get his safety blanket, Alexander Mattison, much later in the draft, and Mattison is a damn good running back, younger than Latavius Murray, and doesn't really have much else to compete with. It's Adam Thielen right now who he's really competing with. So if Dalvin Cook holds out or gets injured like he has previously, I have more confidence in Alexander Mattison than I do in Latavius Murray.
I think the difference between the two really is we've seen Latavius Murray in that Saints offense be a top 3 running back.
Correct.
Like when Kamara got hurt, Latavius Murray absolutely balled out. The biggest thing for me was the mistake that Sean Payton made was when they moved on from Ingram and they brought in Murray instead of saying kind of what Sean McDermott and the Bills did with Zach Moss and saying Moss is going to have that Gore role. They basically said, hey, we're going to try to make Kamara a workhorse.
He can't be that.
You don't have to do that. I'm not saying that they can't or they shouldn't, but if Kamara is very good as an efficient back, and that's why we like him for fantasy. We saw the heavier workload. Maybe it took a toll, but the touchdowns went way down. And I know a lot of that had to do with the Taysom Hill usage. But if they go into this year saying, look, we don't need to give Kamara 190 carries. We can keep him at 140, which is, I think, a happy medium between what he was at with Ingram versus what they tried to do last year. Give him his 81 catches every year because he's basically a lock for that. 3 straight years at 81 catches. He's going to be the second target in the receiving game for them. You add that with the rushing ability, the touchdown potential goes up. That makes your offense better. So I don't think they need to be shy about utilizing Latavius Murray and scaling back Kamara, which, again, I have zero issue taking Kamara in the first round. I have him as my RB4 in my projections. Like, I'll take him all day. If people want him, if I'm sitting at the back end of a first round, 7, 8, 9 range, and people let him slip, I will scoop him up in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and how mad does everybody get when you have, either Michael Thomas or Alvin Kamara, and then freaking Taysom Hill gets the touchdown every single time? It's like you're on the 5, and don't go over to Taysom Hill. It makes me so mad. So we got a question here. What are our thoughts on Deontay Johnson this year?
God. Oh God!
I think Joe thinks this is one of my burner accounts.
Yeah. Egg
I am
Peter
the
27.
absolute biggest Deontay Johnson fan this year. I'm telling you right now, I am going to be doing some major victory laps this year with Deontay Johnson. I think not only is he going to be a top 15 wide receiver, he's going to outscore Juju Smith-Schuster in fantasy this year. I am all aboard the Deontay Johnson bandwagon. I am leading that train right now.
Josh drank too many Trulies this offseason when he was doing our Steelers
and I don't
preview.
even care.
I had a question too. Eric, I'll go to you on this one. You've been quiet for a little bit here. What impact will A.J. Dillon have on Aaron Jones in Green Bay?
Man, it's hard to say, right? I mean, the organization invested in that player, so I tend to think that they're going to find a way to use him. But more than anything else, I have the absolute lowest shares of Jones out of really any of that kind of tier 1A running back, right? If for nothing else, just regression. You're having to pay his market high water point in order to get him onto your team, and you're expecting him to essentially lead the league in rushing touchdowns again in order to give return on that. So I have him in one spot because I got caught price enforcing in an auction. But apart from that, I'm avoiding him just about everywhere I can. All
right, guys. Anyone else have any news or notes, or any guys you're really high on that no one's talking about? Someone else, a little nugget you want to throw in there, some fantasy nuggets before we get out of here?
I think with the Aaron Jones thing, obviously you can expect touchdown regression. 19 touchdowns last year. Of course, that's coming down. For me, he's still going to be the same back. I just think A.J. Dillon is going to take more of the short yardage, the touchdowns, that sort of thing. But you can still count on the receiving volume. I think Jamal Williams is going to be a thing of the past. That's really the biggest thing for me. A.J. Dillon is not somebody that I'm going out and openly trying to draft. But I'm not shy about taking Aaron Jones. I still think he'll finish as a top 10 running back.
Yeah, I'm just not going to take him as high as I think that he's going. I hate saying the word fluke again, but nobody saw it coming last year. They didn't really have anyone to throw to there last year. And Packers, I'm just kind of one of those teams that
I still don't have anybody to throw to outside of Devontae.
No change.
Hey,
it's
Alan Lazard.
Oh, the Lazard love.
I will not stand for this Lazard slander.
Yeah, you're dying on that hill, brother.
You are dying on Deontay Johnson being a top 15 wide receiver. All I'm saying is Alan Lazard
Did you see the coverage today? Big Ben's developing that chemistry, baby.
Oh,
did.
congratulations!
Make it happen.
And Ronald Jones still has the starting job in Tampa Bay. We've all
Okay, the
heard
difference
bullshit
is
spewed out of
Bavarian
people's mouths
lying to
today.
us for years.
Ugh.
That's the difference.
Ugh.
Another question here. Should I drop one tight end if I have Gronk and Ebron? He could pick up Jarwin, Herndon, Smith, or Ian Thomas.
Drop both of them and
I
pick
would
up
drop
Herndon and Jarwin.
Yeah, Jarwin.
Drop both of them.
Jarwin and Jonnu, personally. But
Oh, Jonnu Smith was an option? Yes, Jonnu Smith. Sorry.
I believe he mentions Ian Thomas. What's your thoughts on Ian Thomas there? With Teddy, I think Teddy Bridgewater might have a little bit of a sleeper year. I think that they do have weapons. Curtis Samuel can ever pull it together. He's a speedster and he's got some great talent. What is your thoughts on Ian Thomas? Can he be one of those breakout tight ends that no one's really talking about?
I love Ian Thomas.
Same
Really?
here.
Yeah, I'm a big Ian Thomas fan. My biggest thing with that entire offense is I just don't trust Teddy Bridgewater. Even when you look at what he did with New Orleans last year, if you take that 5 game sample size, extrapolated over 16 games, that's only 530 passing attempts. You have Christian McCaffrey, you have DJ Moore, and everybody's talking about how much of a target hog DJ Moore was last year, that had he not missed those last 2 games, he would have out targeted Christian McCaffrey. And that's great. Sure, maybe that would have happened, but it didn't. That's the simple fact of the matter. Then you add in Robbie Anderson, who they paid $12 million for this year. Matt Rule, that's his guy. Like, they're not just going to throw him the ball 60 times. I don't buy that nonsense. So you add in Ian Thomas, who, again, I like. There's just way too many mouths to feed for somebody that doesn't throw the football a ton. I don't think he had more than 450 passing attempts in any of his starter-worthy years in Minnesota. So asking him to come out here, which, again, we believe that Carolina is going to be historically bad. Their defense is awful. They're going to have to throw the football a ton. I just don't see Teddy Bridgewater being that guy. He's not. And if they're losing, why would they not want to see what they have with Will Grier, who was the 3rd-round pick? They went out and they brought in P.J. Walker, who balled out in the AAF.
Yeah.
Like, those are 3 guys, like 2 other guys on top of Bridgewater, who can come in and throw passes. So maybe Bridgewater only throws 500 times. That doesn't mean that the Panthers won't throw for 650 attempts. They probably will, but it's not all going to come from Bridgewater. I just don't see that.
Didn't they sign Walker's receiver he had with the Houston Roughnecks as well?
Yeah, what was his name? I'm pretty sure they did. I really want to say Noel. I actually got to cover one of the Vipers games and do the press conference and ask PJ a few questions, and he's really down-to-earth guy. He's not a big guy. He's actually a pretty small dude. But it'd be awesome.
Again, that's somebody that played with Matt Rule in Temple, I believe. So
Matt Rule, baby.
Awesome, guys. Well, let's get your plugs in real quick right now. We are sponsored by Manscaped. So go to manscaped.com right now, code SC2020. Get 20% off your first order plus free shipping. So go ahead. Your balls will thank you. We got to get all that grooming ready for that football season. So, Eric, give us a plug real quick about the Pros with Joes.
Yeah, proswithjoes.rallyup.com. Again, 56 pros, 56 charities. We're doing some good work. Really interesting opportunity to partner up and kind of get a peek behind the curtain for all these fantasy experts that you trust out there. If you want to co-manage a team with Kristin, go.rallyup.com/Jalwan, Jalwan. So you can go from watching on the stream every Thursday to actually talking draft strategy with her every week.
And Josh and Joe, where can we find your banter where you guys fight every week? Tell us.
that's pretty much what we do, yeah.
Yeah.
You can find my personal handle is at the one Hudsonian. That's the number 1, not spelled out. We're at Club Fantasy all across social, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Club Fantasy FFL, idiot.
Wow, I missed that. This is why you're the host, Joe. Apparently, I've drank
too many truly.
So- Club Fantasy FFL.
Yeah,
you can find all of our articles. We've got a whole bunch of stuff hitting this year. It's www.clubfantasyffl.com. The 3rd host among us, Ryan Weiss, he's also participating in the Pros with Joe's charity drive. So whatever that website was that you just read off, Eric, what was it again?
Yeah, it's go.rallyup.com/Weiss,
WEISSE. That's Ryan. That's where you can find Ryan. He can help you manage your team. He's also an analyst with fantasygo.com as well, which helps out players that maybe need some, one-on-one consultations, or if maybe they just can't get around to setting their lineups for a week, he will physically do that for you. We call him the Stream Master General. He writes the Stream of the Week articles with the fantasy footballers as well as with us. Is absolutely awesome dude. So glad that he's come on board with us and helping us out. And we've got our show, no pun intended, presented by us, Club Fantasy. You can find us again, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, 7:00 Eastern Wednesday nights, uploaded as a podcast Thursday morning. We broadcast on WXSJ 97.3 Sunshine Jams in Miami, Sunday nights and Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. And we're also doing a start sit on Saturdays this coming season, starting, I believe, I want to say the 13th is the Saturday, or maybe it's the 12th. I can't remember. 12th. Okay. So we're doing that. I believe it's at 10 a.m. Eastern. That'll be a Twitter exclusive. And then we've got a new show, which piggybacking off of our Women of Fantasy event that we just finished up, Women of Fantasy Football, with our editor, Faith Enos. You can find her at FF_Leap of Faith. It's called the Speakeasy.
All right. So you're everywhere, basically. We can't get away from you.
Yep.
Yeah. So you guys, this is awesome. Come back anytime. Love to, chip in on your guys' show. Really excited about the charity stuff. We got 2 days left to sign up for that. So thank you so much, guys. It has been wonderful, and good luck to all of your fantasy teams this season.
Thank you, Kristin.
Good luck, everybody. Thanks for having us.
Cheers.